So we are going to take a look at how to edit and cite like a rock star. The first thing you need to do is go ahead and get out your research packet, your rough draft, your works cited, and your rubric while we're going through some of this. Okay, so let's do a formatting check. Take a look at your paper, and we need to make sure that it looks like this. Now, this is a sample paper that I've got on the website if you'd like to take a closer look at it, but right now we're just looking at the quick formatting of your paper to make sure that it looks appropriate. Look in the upper left-hand corner, make sure that you've got your MLA heading. That's your name, professor name, course name, and then the date with the complete date and the month and the year. And then take a look at the title. Make sure that it's an interesting title, that it's centered, that it's not bold, it's not underlined. And finally, take a look in the right-hand corner and make sure that you've got your last name and page number. I'll show you in a minute how to do that on Word and older versions of Word, but for now you need to make sure that you've got your last name, space, page number in the upper right-hand corner. Okay, so let's go ahead and sort of distinguish the difference between InText Citations and your works cited page, because I think there might be some confusion there. Your InText citation is what you are going to cite in your paper, thus the name InText Citation. The works cited are the works that you are citing at the end of the paper, and that's going to be on a separate sheet titled Works Cited. So make sure that you don't have your entire MLA Works Cited entry in your InText citation. Okay, so looking at the sample paper in front of you, you'll see that it's a short story critic. Conrad Shoemaker makes the point that maybe the reason Gilman had the narrator unnamed was to show that as a person, she had completely lost her identity. Behind the bars of the wallpaper, she had given up a sense of who was and who really turned into a lost soul. Now, I got this from Shoemaker 170, so the author is Shoemaker and the page number is 170. Notice that I don't have the entire works cited entry. I've only got the author's last name and page number. So for some of you guys who are putting your entire works cited entry in there, that's actually incorrect. For InText Citations, you're only supposed to have a small snippet of what the actual citation was. The entire citation is going to go on the works cited page, which again is a separate page at the very end of the paper itself. Now for the quote, notice that I've led into the quote. I don't just write the quote and stick it in the middle of the paper without any attachment to it. So I've led into this quote. You must make sure that you lead into your quotes. You can't simply jump right into them. So what's the difference between InText citation versus your works cited? This is a works cited page. Notice that it is a different page entirely. The words works cited are centered, and you'll see that the entry for Shoemaker is the very last one because alphabetically speaking, S comes after all of those other letters. Now, as far as how to cite these things, you can go to all sorts of citation wizards. You can use the sheets that you got from the Media Center. You can use reference material, whatever you need to in order to create these citations. But the number one thing that you need to remember is that the works cited page comes at the end. It's a separate sheet. There are hanging indents for each one of these. So you'll see the last name and then you'll see the first name. For the titles of articles, you're just going to have the title of article there as opposed to the author. Okay, so here is a further quick tutorial about adding InText citations and why you would have InText citations even if you've got a works cited. So pay close attention.
Welcome to the Kirkwood Community College Library's Help Anytime video series. I'm Kate Hess, librarian at Kirkwood. In the previous videos in this series, you learned about why it's important to cite your sources and about the basics of formatting those citations for your works cited page. This video will focus on creating InText citations in MLA style. You may recall that the InText citation is where you pause in your writing to point to the specific place within a source, often a page number, where your readers can look to find the particular idea or quote you've just included in your work. Before we get into specifics about how to create InText citations, let's look at some reasons why they're needed in the first place when you're already including a works cited list. Without InText citations, your readers would have only a general idea that you may have gotten some of the ideas you talk about in your paper from any one of the sources listed on your works cited list. When you include an in-text citation, you're guiding your reader to a specific page of your source, so your reader, if she chooses, can look up your fact and learn more about it. It's a huge help to your reader, and it makes you, the writer, look even more trustworthy. In preparing to build your in-text citations, you'll find it less confusing if you adopt these helpful and time-saving habits as you're drafting. The first good habit goes back to your works cited list. You should begin building your works cited list as you start selecting sources for your research. As you're reading, if you think you're likely to include a source in your paper, make its works cited entry and save it. If you end up not using some of the sources, all you have to do is delete them later. Make sure you save the citations to a single place to avoid future confusion. Having this list handy will make the creation of in-text citations a breeze. The second good habit is to include your in-text citations in your notes as soon as you begin copying quotes and ideas and writing your original ideas. Don't worry about using MLA format while you're taking notes and working on first drafts. Just use whatever shorthand you'll use and recognize when the time comes to create those citations. Think of these notes as leaving yourself a trail of breadcrumbs through the woods, little signs of where you found that particular piece of information. And now let's see how to create the in-text citations in MLA style. If you've made it easy on yourself by keeping track of both your works cited and your breadcrumb trail of notes, creating the actual in-text citations should be fairly simple. It will go something like this. You're writing along and decide you want to include a quotation, a paraphrase, or a summary of another author's ideas. You type in that quotation or idea and pause to acknowledge where it came from. Find the source in your works cited list and imagine you're snapping off the handle that sticks out. The first word of the citation, typically the author's last name or the first word of the title, is often all you need. After the period or quotation mark, you type a beginning parenthesis, then the first word from your citation, then the page number where that quote can be found, and the ending parenthesis. This is the basic process. As stated earlier, the first word of the work citation is sometimes all you need. Under some circumstances, you may need to include more words in the parentheses. For example, if there are 2 or 3 authors, you include each author's last name in the parentheses, typing or pasting them from your works cited list. Or, if there's no author, use the first word or words of the title. Use your judgment in deciding how many words of the title are needed to be clear with your reader. Just remember that if you keep track of your sources and where each idea or quotation comes from, you'll be saving yourself from scrambling to do all that work at the end and risking confusing yourself and your readers about where your information came from. As you prepare your final draft, always take a few moments to check your style guide to make sure you have the correct format for each in-text citation before you submit your work. As with your works cited page, your instructor and the campus writing centers are great places to get help with creating in-text citations.